Insecurity in Nigeria has become so bad that farmers have now decided to take matters into their own hands and protect themselves from attacks. Now, if you have followed keenly for years now, farmers have taken the hit a lot more as bandits invade farmlands and then the surrounding communities as well. And for years, they have said that this has to stop, but there seem to be more and more deaths recorded. So what have they done? The national president of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, Kabiru Ibrahim, has advised farmers to establish special vigilantes and protect themselves from attacks. Sad? Yes. Necessary? Absolutely. We'll look into that in no time. But also, every year, International Epilepsy Day is celebrated. A day set aside to raise awareness about epilepsy, dispel misconceptions, and advocate for the rights and well-being of people living with epilepsy. This day serves as a platform for individuals worldwide to share their own experiences with epilepsy and promote understanding about this neurological condition. This year, it falls on the 12th of February, which is today. We'll be looking at that as well, the causes, the prevention, and the management. I'm Blessings Mosugu, and this is VSA. But first to the headline stories across the continent, and to help us do that, we have Adelaja Adesina. Hello, Adelaja.
Hi, Blessings Mosugu. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you too. How was your weekend?
Fantastic, and yours?
Great. All right, tell us what's happening across the continent.
All right, I'll take you right through it. African headlines begins in west of the continent, where the International Monetary Fund has issued a stark warning about Nigeria's deteriorating economic situation, citing stalled per capita growth, widespread poverty, and soaring food insecurity as worsening factors in the ongoing cost of living crisis. In a new report titled IMF Executive Board Concludes Post-Financing Assessment with Nigeria, the global financial institution highlighted the challenges facing Nigeria, including rising inflation, exchange rate volatility, weak economic growth, and business closures. The federal government's pledge to release 102,000 metric tons of assorted grains in its bid to address the pressing food crisis has garnered attention from leading opposition parties in Nigeria. The Labour Party and the People's Democratic Party have urged Bola Tinubu-led administration to ensure transparency in executing the commitment, just as they express skepticism over its past unfulfilled promises. President Bola Tinubu has announced plans to make the country self-sufficient in food production and transform it into a net exporter of agricultural products. And speaking during a meeting with a delegation from the Global Tijaniya movement at the presidential villa in Abuja, President Tinubu noted the importance of aggressive mechanization in achieving this goal. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency says it has achieved a breakthrough in its war on narcotics by seizing 7.6 tons of illicit drugs across 8 states in the country. NDLEA spokesperson Femi Babafemi disclosed this development. He notes that the operatives of the agency also arrested a 42-year-old man believed to be supplying drugs to insurgents in Borno State Banki area. The National Youth Service Corps has initiated its first quarter 2024 special health program aimed at providing essential healthcare services to rural communities, starting with the Gosa Sariki community in the Federal Capital Territory. In a ceremony held in Abuja, Brigadier General Yushua Ahmed, Director General of NYC, emphasized the organization's commitment to supporting the federal government's effort in achieving universal health coverage as part of its social welfare programs. In the central part of the continent, one student has been killed and several others injured following an explosion in Cameroon's volatile northwest region. The explosion occurred on Sunday during a Youth Day commemoration march in Nkabe town, sending shockwaves through the community. Disturbing videos circulating on social media capture the chaotic scene as students scramble for safety in the aftermath of the blast. And to the north of the continent, where thousands of Moroccans have taken to the Strait of Rabat, calling for an end to ties with Israel over its actions in Gaza. Some wave placards saying "Stop the massacre" and "Normalization is treason" during the march. And that's all on African Headlines. It's back to Blessings Osubu.
Thank you so much, Adebola, for giving us the headline stories.
You're welcome.
You're still live with us on VSA, and when we come back, we'll take a look at what the farmers have decided to do regarding insecurity and what the government can do to tackle this issue once and for all. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us on Village Square Africa. Now, the national president of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, Kabiru Ibrahim, has advised farmers to establish special vigilantes and protect themselves from attacks. Now, he stated this against the backdrop of the rising insecurity across parts of the country, which has resulted in the high cost of foodstuff. And might I mention that this has gone on for years. And while farmers allay the fears of bandit attacks in the north, the herd of farmer crisis is dominant in the southwest. For instance, it was gathered that bandits had taken over most farms in Zamfara state while demanding levies before they would allow farmers access their own farms. Analyzing the implication of a situation, the World Bank, in its latest food security report, predicted that 7 northern regions of the country would suffer a severe food crisis due to the high level of insecurity. Well, that said, joining us to have this very important conversation is Dr. Adelaja Adesina, former special advisor to the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, and he's also a member advisory board, the Top Farmer Nigeria. Thank you so much, Dr. Adesina, for joining us.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too. It's great to have you join us as well. Sadly, Doctor, we're seeing the situation in Nigeria where farmers are lamenting now. Their lives are not only at risk, they're also at risk of losing their own produce. For example, looking at Zamfara state, where the farmers' produces were more like hijacked, and then they were asking for levies to be paid to release their own products to them. I guess it's safe to say that this has definitely gotten out of hand, and I'm going to start off by asking, what factors have contributed to the worsening insecurity in Nigeria in general?
Yeah, thank you very much, and it's good to be here again. You see, the picture that you have painted in Zamfara is just one of the many cases of sorry stories that we are telling and are facing in Nigeria. But one thing that we must realize is that when we talk about security, food security of any nation is actually the #1 security, because the popular says that an hungry man is an angry man. So the Zamfara situation is very sad, and it's been something that has been going on. It's just now that it is making the news, but it's been something that has been going on for years. I can speak for Zamfara, I can speak for Benue, I can speak for Plateau State. All of these incidences across the country is something that we need to tackle if we're really serious about security and food security.
Right. And how would you say that farmers in these regions have been affected generally by the insecurity in Nigeria, and how will that have a ripple effect on every other consumer of their produce?
Okay, it's not just farmers in those regions. Let me tell you, it has come down to the south. We're involved in a project in Oyo State. Oyo State is just around the corner, and that's Erua. It's a multi-billion-dollar Naira project that we're handling for a bank. The expatriates on that farm, they had incidents of kidnapping. So we as consultants, if we're going on that farm, we'll go with armed escort. And this price of providing additional security for people that are going to work on the farm will be borne at the end of the day by the consumers. So we're talking about inflation in the country. By the way, let me put it on record that food inflation right now is put at about 33, going on 35%. Last week we were reviewing the prices of rice of egg, of chicken between May and now. It's not up to 1 year, but I can tell you that inflation of all of those food items has gone over 100%. And if you go to the market, you know what we're talking about. So it's going to come down to us as the people. It's going to come down to the common man on the street. My wife also always tells me she wonders how the average Nigerian feed, because when she goes to the market, she comes back, say the price of what she bought a couple of weeks ago is not the same thing. So it has gone up. So food inflation will continue to increase as long as we have this insecurity that we're talking about.
Now, we've heard of these situations that we've had to deal with for the past few years. And of course, we're not saying that the government is not doing anything because, I mean, steps are being taken. But I would like to know, are there any specific steps that the government is taking to address the security challenges that the farmers especially are facing? We know that the government is trying to step in, introducing community policing or partnering with community police and, trying to make sure that people are safe in their communities. But are there steps that the government is taking to secure the farmers and their products?
Well, I will not be able to speak on the side of the government at this time as to the steps that the government is taking. But if we look at the problem, the challenge that is facing us, the solution is not unidirectional. There are so many angles to solving the problem. So if I'm in the position to offer advice, I would say that, number one, there must be that political will to tackle the issue of insecurity because it is affecting food security in the country. So there must be that political will. Then there must be strategies that are short-term strategies. Then you're also looking at long-term strategies and medium-term so that we can tackle the problem. And there must be consistency in tackling this challenge that we face in the country. You mentioned the issue of community policing earlier, and that is just one of the ways to go, because insecurity is a local problem, and the solution must be local also. You cannot have a federal force trying to tackle insecurity in the villages. And I always reference the country that we borrowed our policing from, or that we copied it from. We copied from the UK. And they are very strong on community policing. And the democracy that we're practicing, we copied from the US. US is very strong on community policing. They have state police, they have local government, local police, they have county police. So why can't we, if we're really serious about tackling this issue, look at that solution and begin to pursue it in the short term and plan for a long-term measure to really resolve it and tackle the problem of insecurity generally, because it is affecting our food security.
Now, the farmers have finally decided to take matters into their own hands, saying that they are going to protect themselves against these people. Are there any potential risks and consequences of the farmers securing themselves, like equipping themselves and securing themselves against the bandits and preventing the attacks generally?
Well, yeah, what the farmers have decided to do, it's a response that is not necessarily going to resolve the problem. Because number one, we talk about the issue of security. That's the primary responsibility of the government. So if farmers are coming together to say that they want to start protecting themselves, then that is sending a signal to the people in government that government is failing in doing that and carrying out that assignment. So there are potential risks. If it is not properly handled, it could snowball into other crises for us in the country. But what I would say, the farmers can embrace technology to solve the problem of insecurity. We have, if we have a strong farmers union, like you mentioned, the All Farmers Association, the association or the local farmer community, that we have can embrace technology. You can have connect with people that provide satellite services to have a surveillance coverage of their areas, of their villages, of the localities where this insecurity is gaining ground. So they can use drones to monitor. They can do, apart from the brute force, you can use common sense to overcome insecurity. You can use intelligence gathering and all of that, because if you notice the incidents, it will be they come in motorbikes to attack the farmers. They form their base. So if we have a surveillance system that is effective, that is proactive, you can nip some of these attacks in the bud. And once the criminals that are perpetuating this insecurity know that, there is no hiding place for them, then they will have a rethink and they begin to shrink and withdraw from our communities, and the farmers can go back to farm and do what they need to do.
All right, Dr. Adelaja Adesina, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thought on this matter. Dr. Adesina is the former special advisor to the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development and is also a member of the advisory board of a top farm in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you once again. Well, you're still watching VSA, and when we come back, we're going to be taking a look at the fight against epilepsy. Every year, it's the day is commemorated to create awareness, for this neurological disease and to know what people can do, to better create more awareness. We're going to come back to talk about that. Just stay with us. You're still live with us on VSA. Many thanks for staying tuned. Now, the theme for 2024, Milestones on My Epilepsy Journey, focuses on personal achievement and meet the challenges brought on by the condition. Now, if you're just joining us, we talked about getting into the conversation of creating awareness about epilepsy. And today, the 12th of February, marks that day that we celebrate World Epilepsy Day. Every year it's celebrated, and today it falls on February 12th, this year rather. Now, it encourages people to share successes and to break the silence. International Epilepsy Day is meant to celebrate the strength and milestones of those who are living with epilepsy. But besides that, it's also to create awareness for those living around them to know what to do and how best to support them. Now, International Epilepsy Day was instituted in 2015, and it is one of the world's oldest known medical conditions. Yet there is a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of public fear about it. Now, this day, like I said earlier, aims to create awareness for people living around those who have epilepsy, and it also serves as a way to make people get rid of public fear and sensitize people about epilepsy. It serves to empower people afflicted by the condition and seek appropriate legislation to protect their right. Despite affecting people worldwide, epilepsy still carries stigma. International Epilepsy Day aims to eliminate the misconceptions and encourage open dialogue, as well as create a supportive community as well. All of this, which I've mentioned. Now, the day is vital in challenging superstitions as well, and it seeks to eliminate discrimination and foster understanding about this neurological condition. That said, joining us to have this conversation is Dr. Tigro Joyum, a neurologist and co-founder of Global Organization of Health, Education, and Purple Point Neurodiagnostic in Boston, USA. Thank you so much, Dr. Tigro, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. So I'm Tigro Joyum, doctor in a few months, and I am a neurophysiologist, not neurologist, but thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. First, I want to thank you for having me, and also want to say a shout out to Honorable Minister Mohamed Ali Pate, who was my professor a few months ago, and Dr. Kelechi, who are both at the Ministry of Health working hard for Nigeria. So I wanted to give a shout out to them, and a happy Epilepsy Day to everyone around the world.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Joyum, for that. And thanks for the correction. I'll say that prophetically, Dr. Joyum. But yeah, thanks for the correction. We also have joining us Dr. Tayo Ojo, Luth Neurosurgery Unit, Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you so much, Dr. Ojo, for joining us as well. Dr. Ojo, are you with us?
Thank you for having me. Yes.
All right, it's a pleasure. Thank you. All right, gentlemen, today is World Epilepsy Day, and this year is dedicated to celebrating the milestones, especially of people living with epilepsy. But not just that, we're also trying to sensitize other people living around the communities, to get rid of the fear, the stigma, the superstitious beliefs, the myths that surrounds this neurological disease, and how best people can manage and support people who are living with epilepsy. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Joyam. How prevalent would you say that epilepsy worldwide is, and what impact would you say it has on individuals who suffer it and their families?
So I think according to the WHO, the last updated numbers, we are counting about 65 million people worldwide suffering with the condition. But I think that should be corrected because, that was done maybe 7 to 8 years ago, and the numbers have gone up. So I can say it's about 85 million people, and this is pending the WHO doing more work to actually gather data. The reason I say this is because especially in low and middle income countries, the burden is higher, about 80%. So we have more of it, and recent research are showing that there's an association with other, like onchocerciasis and other conditions that lead to people having epilepsy, because epilepsy is like something secondary that could come from, someone having a brain tumor, someone having other stuff that led to him manifesting epilepsy. And the impact of that on the life of people is there's a lot of stigma and discrimination to people who have the condition. And usually people are afraid when, most on our continent in Africa, people more see people who are shaking. So it's the shaking that causes the fear, like, what is this person having? Could that be contagious? Can I have what the person is having? So, and it's usually hard for people with this condition in our continent because they would hide. They don't want to show up in public because of the fact that they're shaking every time. But that is just one kind of epilepsy. There's some epilepsy like absence that you don't even know. Each individual have maybe one seizure attack in his life, which is unconsciously, you don't even hear or feel it or see it. So that is another angle of epilepsy that is not even explored or known yet on our continent.
Right. Okay, Dr. Tayo, what would you say are some common misconceptions and, of course, superstitions and myths that surround epilepsy that makes people fear this condition? Dr. Tayo, your device is muted, I think. Could you please unmute? Dr. Tayo, are you there? Okay, well...
So I think while we wait for Dr. Tayo to come, I can share a little bit of some of the work I do in my research. And spirituality, right? I'm working on spirituality and brain health. There's a lot of issues associated with just misconception because of the spiritual beliefs. And this is not limited to Africa. Before there was advance in knowledge with Hensberger designing the device, which is called EEG, to actually go ahead and look at the electrical activity in your brain, people thought epilepsy was spiritual. And there's some culture that still believe epilepsy is a way of communicating with God, like, in Asia and other places. So we still have that conception that, spiritually, people can transmit epilepsy. Oh, I'm going to give epilepsy to you spiritually, or people have epilepsy spiritually. So there's still that conception, and that, our people are still thinking that way. But we also need to explore the impact of spirituality and prayer on people living with epilepsy, because we have to acknowledge that 80% of people with mental health and epilepsy, they seek help from spiritual healers, traditional healers, and pastors before they come to us to the diagnostics, and then later on they end up with Dr. Ayos, the doctor surgeon for surgery. So we need to actually put that into our African context, and the spirituality has a very big role in our health, and especially mental health and epilepsy, and that need to be addressed. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor. Dr. Tigru,
Can you
thank you.
hear
And
me?
that was apt to have jumped in there. Dr. Ojo, we can hear you now.
Oh, all right, thank you.
Yes. So I'm okay. Go ahead, please.
So the misconceptions and the myths around epilepsy, especially in our region, is quite enormous because most people don't know what causes epilepsy. It's been attributed to spiritual attacks or a result of a sin from the person. But definitely because of this, people don't look firstly to get help medically. And they kind of stigmatize the patients, blame everybody that is around them, and look for help where perhaps there is no help. The implication of this is the epilepsy gets prolonged, they don't get help, and each time somebody has seizure, it becomes more difficult for it to be treated. And much more than that is the effect on the family, is the social stigma, and patients tend to withdraw, making it difficult. But I must say that, of course, about 70 to 80% of epilepsy has no known cause. It may just be electrolyte imbalance and so on and so forth. But in some of them, there are structural damages to brain, like somebody having brain tumor. And I must say at this point too, that if an adult has a seizure, epilepsy in this context, for the first time as an adult, is a brain tumor, until proven otherwise. Other causes apart from tumor may be trauma. In children, it can be as a result of febrile infection or febrile disease, which could be treated if it is seen early. But by and large, when seizure comes or when epilepsy comes, the higher the medical help is sought, the better for the patient.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Ojo, for that. Now, let me come back to you, Tigwa. How would you say that stigma affects individuals with epilepsy and their access to treatment and support as well?
So, how will I put it to frame it for our spectators to kind of understand? So, imagine, I would say, someone who has, let's say, a burn on his face, and we're asking the person to go in public to the market. People usually, if people look differently at people who have the burn, the person will be afraid to get out and go to the market. So people who have, I would say, active epilepsy in our continent, who fall and shake, are afraid themselves of what they have. They don't know what is going on with them. They can't see what is going on. So they are afraid to sometimes even to tell their family members. And family members are afraid to tell other family members, friends, neighbors about the condition. Because we have some, regions where people with epilepsy usually don't get married, or their families, people run away from those families thinking, well, if you get married in this family, you would have that. So imagine just that misconception about the condition, making that people with the condition are restricted and kept out of society. So it's really hard for them to have a good life without public awareness of the condition, without making the condition normal. Like, we should make epilepsy just like heart disease. Everyone can have it at any time. So the people that are suffering could even have the courage to get out of their house to seek care going to the hospitals.
Right. All right. Thank you, Tigwa, for that. Now, Dr. Ojo, what would you say that, I mean, today is International Epilepsy Day. What would you say the goals are? How are we meant to sensitize people about this challenge, and how does it aim to challenge the misconceptions and the discriminations that we've mentioned earlier?
I would say that we should tell people that epilepsy shouldn't be much different from somebody having malaria or diabetes or hypertension or typhoid. We should kind of demystify it so that anybody with epilepsy should be free to walk up to any facility and look for help. I think at a time like this, technology has gone far beyond 20 years ago when people with seizures or epilepsy may have to die having seizures. With what we have now, there's a lot that can be done to ensure that somebody is seizure-free. It can be treated medically. Few of them can be treated surgically. There is hope, and they can live life like any other person. And we should see seizure or epilepsy as any other health challenge, and it could be as trivial as malaria. So the aim is to go out, let people know that it's not caused by witches or wizards. It's not because of what they did or didn't do, and there is help for such cases.
And what would you say, Dr. Ojo, can be done to encourage open dialogue and to create a supportive community more than what we already have for the individuals living with epilepsy?
I would say that people with epilepsy could come out like some challenges that I do see on social media and talk about it at all. I've had it, I'm being treated, I haven't had it for a long time. If notable figures or average citizens could do this, more people that are hiding patients, maybe their relation with epilepsy, or in their corners in their homes, would be encouraged to come out. So if social media could help with that, if individuals with epilepsy could come out boldly and say that they have had it at some point and they are better, and also if federal government or government can help in such a way to destigmatize seizures or epilepsy, and if people are encouraged to come out that there is help, and particularly if it is possible to subsidize the treatment, I must say at this point that these medications are not free and they're not cheap. If it is possible to make it that it can be easily procured, or if on the other hand, there could be an action group where individuals with seizures, relations, other well-wishers could come together and encourage people to come out and perhaps part fund the treatment of epilepsy, I think more people would benefit from it, and a day like this would make significant impact on people suffering or having challenges with epilepsy.
Thank you. Now, Tigro, what resources and support networks are available at the moment for individuals with epilepsy and their families?
So I would say in my work, I founded the global organization. I co-founded the global organization of self-education. And we have worked actually with groups of individuals from Nigeria. We've worked at LUT, we've worked at Yaba, and there is also some work in Owerri. So there are groups already, there are some groups existing in Nigeria who are doing awareness, doing diagnostics. And recently we created the African Neurophysiologic Society, which we met in Kenya, and we had a very strong delegation from Nigeria. So there's already some network of people who are doing work in epilepsy, because, and I agree with the professor who just spoke, that we also need to implore the government, again, Honorable Professor Mohamed Ali Pate, who is my former professor, to shed some light. I know they have a lot of other things on their plate, and non-communicable disease is a little bit on the low end, but we need to go out to look for resources for funding organizations like the Gates, the USAID, to support the work of epilepsy. And one thing I will commend is education. We need education for healthcare providers, because the more awareness will happen on social media is great, and also the TV need to help us to put the word out. But we need to actually make education for healthcare workers compulsory. The same way we have every healthcare worker knows how to do first aid for a heart attack. When someone has a heart attack, you know at the first aid on how to take care of that. Epilepsy first aid needs to be mandatory in all medical schools and all nursing schools, so they know about if someone is having a seizure, what is the proper thing to do. And then we can go into other public spaces and request maybe one person in a public space should have an epilepsy first aid knowledge, just so we can make it more known and make it more available. And other resources is the Epilepsy Foundation US, Epilepsy Foundation UK. They are quite out there, and they have resources that are online that could be tapped by any country to work with. And also, I think on a local level, themes on epilepsy should be defined, because like the theme of epilepsy today is very broad and, let's say US centric or UK centric. But the theme in Nigeria, for example, should be defined according to the context. Because right now we're still dealing with stigma, even people getting out. So each year, the Nigerian government can define the theme of epilepsy according to the context and the time of the country as well. So that's what I can share about resources available, which there are many, and also the support of the government. We need the government to kind of shed some light and, support the course. And because now we have surgeons who can do the surgery, why not support those who can be free by surgery? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Dr. Ojo, let's talk about the role of technology in this. I mean, we're in a fast-paced world, and technology kind of applies to every single facet of our world, in this 21st century. How would you say that technology can be successfully integrated into the treatment, the prevention, the diagnosis, whatever it is for those people who have epilepsy, and the awareness that needs to be created, even for healthcare workers, because not many of them, let's be honest, know how to manage situations when it comes to people with epilepsy. What do you have to say to that regard?
I must say that technology is a game changer. 25 years ago, it would be difficult to make a diagnosis of brain tumor in Nigeria. So if we look at it, with technology, it is easier to make a diagnosis of the cause of epilepsy in those that have a structural abnormality in the brain. On the other hand, the work of neurophysiologists has gone so much that right now, we don't only say that somebody has a seizure, we can even type the type of seizure and tell where it is coming from the brain because of the use of neurophysiology, CT scan, and MRI. If you move a bit further from there, technology has helped in helping the stigma that is accompanying seizures, because now, especially in the big cities and perhaps outside the country, people don't see epilepsy as a big deal, but in the village, it's still a struggle. So technology is bringing it out, letting people know that it is not a cause, it is not from attacks from other places. It is something that is purely medical and can be treated. And if you move a bit further from that, with technology, technology has made it possible for seizures to be treated even surgically. There's a type of seizure, the mesial temporal sclerosis, that would cause seizure in an adult. With the aid of the MRI, with microsurgical approach, with facilities in the theater, it can be taken out and the patient will be completely seizure-free without taking medications anymore. So by and large, technology has been at the center point, harnessing every aspect of seizures to make life more bearable and livable for people that are struggling with epilepsy, from diagnosis, from treatment, from stigma, even from social group that could help others to know that they are not the only one struggling with seizures. And that can help a lot in building their psyche and encouraging them to live a normal life and impacting their mental health positively.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ojo. Now, Tegwa, let's talk about some of the successful initiatives, if any, that we have had in the last few years when it comes to handling the issues of people living with epilepsy. Are there any successful initiatives or campaigns that have helped in addressing the issue?
Yeah, so I mean, as I said, in 2018, I was in Lagos. We did a big campaign at Lu, and and from there, I mean, they have an organization that do epilepsy awareness on a monthly. They support and share information out. Some of the success stories, I guess, on the continent of Africa that I've been part with through our company, Purple Neurodiagnostics, is epilepsy surgeries that were done in Accra, Ghana, with Dr. Kaba, the neurosurgeon Dr. Kaba. And I know a lot of them is done in Nigeria. Some of them have been done in Uganda as well. So, I mean, I'm talking countries that are not as advanced as Nigeria. So surgery is possible for patients that have epilepsy. As the neurosurgeon said, neurophysiology, we wouldn't be here without the technology. As a neurophysiologist, we use technology to track the physiology of the brain and the spine to find, where the actual seizure foci is coming from. And it's with that we can help tell the surgeon it's coming from this location. And then we do more tests to determine if we take this part of the brain out, is the patient going to still be able to talk, walk, and do other functions? So that has been done, and we've participated in a live surgery with the patient awake in Accra, Ghana, and that was possible. And I know that is done in Nigeria and can be done in many other parts of Africa. So I think another big thing that happened in September with the Epilepsy Bureau of Epilepsy is a big movie that was done out of Uganda. And I think the movie is going to be aired soon. I forgot the title of it, but it's a very big documentary about the story of a young lady with epilepsy. Those type of stories can also help to destigmatize and make the people with the condition be as part of the community. Because the more we see people who have the condition talk about it and show their life, it makes the condition, I would say, acceptable. It makes the condition, fit in the community. And then we can just take them as normal people. And even at jobs, we need to be able to make sure that people who have epilepsy still have the possibility to be supported at their jobs, where the work can actually say we support people with, neurodevelopmental condition. So to share a few, of success stories.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Tegwo Joyum. I think that would be a good place to end the conversation. I would have loved to know what you both would hope that this day would achieve, but from our conversations, I'm sure that was pretty clear. Now, Dr. Tayo Ojo, I just want to quickly find out, what do you hope that this celebration of this day, the International Day for Epilepsy, would achieve for the world, for the people living with it, and the community surrounding them?
I think in particular for us in Nigeria and Africa, it's for us to know that epilepsy is treatable largely, either medically or surgically, and people shouldn't stigmatize other people that are struggling with seizures, epilepsy.
Okay. All right. On that note, I want to say a big thank you. Tegwo Joyum, neurologist and co-founder, Global Organization of Health Education and Purple Point Neurodiagnostic, Boston, USA, as well as Dr. Tayo Ojo, Luth Neurosurgery Unit, Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us to discuss this very crucial issue. And we do hope that the purpose of this day be achieved. We hope that more people are sensitized about epilepsy, and of course the myths are debunked as well. Thank you once again, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for having us.
My pleasure. Well, this is where we call it a wrap on VSA. Thank you so much for watching. We've discussed two crucial issues that bother not just Africa now, but even the global issues as well. Do well to join us in our subsequent episodes as we discuss issues that plague Africa and issues that plague the world, and of course as we prefer solutions as well to them, because that's what News Central does. Stay with us. We still have more shows, interesting events and conversations as well coming up. I'm Blessings Mosugu, and this is VSA.